consecrated life. Before we start, I want to first say welcome to Father John Pavlik and say thank you to John for giving his time to stimulate a conversation among us here this evening. I want to point out to you that I don't know how many saw this today, but there was an editorial in the National Catholic Reporter where they said sisters deserve an apology for apostolic visitations. If you don't have it and you want a copy, put your email address on this and I will email it to you tonight. And also the Archdiocese of Washington, Sister Mary Delora, can't be here tonight. She had gum surgery, and so she sent us the stuff for an open house day, the Days with Consecrated Men and Women. And if you haven't gotten that email, put your email address on this, and I'll get it out to you tonight as well. I promised Mary Delora I would do that. And I would also like to invite you on Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock. We're having an evening prayer for Christian unity to inaugurate the Week of Prayer for Christian Unity here in Washington, D.C. Our speaker is Bishop Dennis Madden, Auxiliary in Baltimore, is presiding at evening prayer on this coming Sunday at 4. And the speaker at the homilist at is Dr. Kristen Johnston Largan. She's interim dean and assistant professor of systematic theology at the Lutheran Theological Seminary. So if you have the time, please come and join us for those things. So if you're interested in any of these things, I'll leave them on the back table there. Just put your email address on it, and I'll get it out to you later tonight. Could we do this briefly? This is supposed to be a conversation, okay? So how about if we go around, pass this mic around, and say who you are and where you're from. Preferably not your life history, okay?
Sure. My name is Sister Marie Bernadette. I'm a Dominican sister of St. Cecilia, originally from New York, and I'm currently based here in Washington, D.C. So.
Hi, I'm Sister Mary Madeline, and I'm also a Dominican of St. Cecilia. I was born in Washington, D.C. and raised in Baltimore, and I'm here studying. I'm studying for the Angelicum, but I'm here writing a dissertation. Okay.
And I'm John Pavlik, a Capuchin from Pennsylvania. I'm the one who's here tonight with you, so you'll hear a lot from me later.
I'm Sister Mary Clement. I'm a daughter of charity, and I'm at St. Anne's Center for Children, Youth, and Families.
I'm Sister Migdalia. Everybody calls me Sister Meggie. I'm from Bridgeport, Connecticut. I was born in Bridgeport, but I lived 39 years in Puerto Rico. And now I'm here in St. Anne's.
I'm Brother Richard Oliver, a Benedictine monk of St. John's Abbey, Collegeville, Minnesota. And I'm here because my boss tonight at Conference of Major Superiors of Men is speaking.
And I'm Brother Tony Legalvo, Franciscan friar from Holy Name College in Silver Spring.
I'm Sister Clara. I'm originally from Uruguay, South America. I'm a religious of Mary Immaculate, and I live in Mexico City. I just visited.
I just came for the meeting. Okay, my name is Sister Maria. I'm from Mexico, but I live here in Jackson and 7th Avenue. We are religious of Mary Immaculate. Thank you.
My name is Brother Sean McConnell. I'm Franciscan's TUR, and I live here in D.C., but I'm from Pennsylvania originally.
My name is Brother Marius Sistrom. I'm also a Franciscan in TOR, living here in D.C., but also from Pennsylvania.
I'm Brother Jason Woolleyhan. I'm a Franciscan TOR, and I'm also from Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh.
I am Angel Vasquez. I'm one of the postulants for the OFM of Franciscans here in Silver Springs.
I'm Dimas from Cuba, from the same community, in the same process of Angel.
I am Camilo Garcia. I was born and raised in Colombia. I am now a postulant for Holy Name Province. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Aaron, OFM postulant living in Silver Spring, and I was born in California, recently in Virginia, but now in Silver Spring.
Good evening. I'm Ron Pecci, an OFM Franciscan. I'm the postulant director living at Silver Spring at the Holy Name College and originally from New York.
Hi, my name is Brother John Ahern, also from New York City. I am a OFM Franciscan in my second year of theology at CUA.
Brother Roger, originally from Cleveland, Ohio, 67 years ago, came here, and I'm with the Holy Land Friars.
Brother Joe Murtha of the Franciscans TOR. I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland, and stationed here in Washington.
Brother Brian McLaughlin, Divine Word Missionaries, originally from San Francisco.
I'm Brother Leonard Canopio with the Marian Fathers Immaculate Conception. We have a campus here, seminary campus.
I am Miriam Joseph. I live and work at the Washington Retreat House down the road, and originally you don't have to tell you where I'm from.
In Bagora, isn't that the truth? I'm Sister Mary Electa, a Franciscan Sister of the Atonement. I'm also at the Washington Retreat House, and I'm from upstate New York, where winter is winter.
I'm Sister Mary Harper. I'm a Franciscan Sister of the Atonement at the Washington Retreat House, originally from Philadelphia.
Brother Samuel Devine, I'm with Franciscans TOR, and I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan.
Brother David Dodd, TOR with the Franciscans. I'm stationed here in Washington. I'm originally from Nashville, Tennessee.
I'm Brother Vincent Yeager with the Franciscan Third Order Regular, Second Theology, and I'm from Pennsylvania originally.
Brother Elijah Clary, I'm with the Franciscans TOR, and I'm originally from Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
I'm Brother James Puglis. I'm with the Franciscans TOR, and I'm originally from Missouri.
I'm Martha Novelli, and I work for Father John at CMSM 2 days a week, and I'm finishing a 33-year career with IBM in December this year, and I'm an affiliate of the Capuchin province that he belongs to. I'm also from Pennsylvania.
I'm Dominique from Divine Word Missionaries. I'd been working in West Virginia for about 8 years and just came into Washington, D.C.
I'm Seraphim Bishoner with the Third Order Regular Franciscans here in Washington, D.C., Missouri.
Hello, my name is Louis, and I'm here in D.C., and I'm a Third Order Franciscan, and not as long as Brother Roger, but I made my profession a few years ago during a Sunday Mass in this very church.
Hi, I'm Sister Ellen Nelson. I'm a religious of the Sacred Heart. I live a few blocks over, and I just moved here a few months ago.
I'm Sister Mary Johnson. I'm a Sister of Notre Dame de Namur. I'm a sociologist at Trinity Washington University down the street here on Michigan Avenue. And I'm originally from Massachusetts, so I say, go Patriots.
I'm Steve Price with the Society of African Missions. I'm a layperson. SMA Fathers and SMA Lay Missionaries. I work with the lay missionaries in Tacoma Park, Maryland.
I'm Garrett Edmonds, originally from California, also kind of a foreign country, and I'm a Franciscan, belong to the California province, but I've been working with the Franciscans of the Holy Land for a lot of years.
I am Greg Friedman from the Cincinnati Franciscan OFMs, and I'm in service here at the monastery.
So I would be remiss if I didn't say a special word of thanks to Mary Johnson, who has been a very close collaborator in putting this series together. And, you know, you can do the perp walk later, okay? I mean, but the thing. But anyway, can I turn this over to you, John, and have our conversation?
Thank you much. It's really a pleasure to be with you. I have a very privileged position, being the executive director of the Conference of Major Superiors of Men. I have the opportunity to travel all over the country and meet men and women who are in religious life. Not only do I have a chance to meet them, but I also have a chance often to see what they do. and where they are with and for one another. Not only do I have the chance to do that in this country, I've also had the chance to do that in places like Colombia, when we had a meeting a few years ago, in Medellin and Cartagena and Bogota. I also had the opportunity to do that in Canada by going to Montreal, and I want to say something a little bit about a few things that we saw there. I also have had the opportunity to do this by going to the Vatican. You know, in these positions, one of the things we must do is represent you at the Vatican. You know, it's intimidating, isn't it, in some ways? You have to know, Sister here does this for the Conference of Major Superiors of Religious Women, huh? And she is, you don't call yourself an executive director, but a council coordinator. It does much the same thing. What this enables us to do is to get something of the pulse of this part of the church, okay? Something of the pulse of this part of the church. I don't claim that we have the total view. I wouldn't want to propose that to you. And I must admit that my primary view, ladies, please pardon us, is of the men. Even though I work in a building where the sisters are working every day, and I work closely with Sister Sharon Ewart from the RICRI, Resource Center for Religious Institutes, nevertheless, my primary work has to be with the guys, okay? So pardon me if at times I'm speaking out of that prejudice. It's not that I mean to ignore you, or I can only know so much, okay? So what I want to do is share a couple things with you. The first thing I want to do is say that the three things the Holy Father said you and I should be doing this year in the year of consecrated life. The first thing he said you should be doing is being grateful for the past. Now, I'm absolutely enamored of the fact that there are many young faces in the crowd here, because I don't want to tell only stories about the past. But I would hope that one of the conversations we could engage in tonight is in some storytelling about what we see and have seen in religious life, okay? I hope that's one of the things we can do. So I hope we could look at the past a little bit, but I don't want to focus only there. Because the next thing he said you should do is have passion about living religious life now. Passion about living religious life now. Not simply that you go through the motions or you do it, huh? But have passion about it. I must admit, at this point in my life, I've been a religious more years than I care to admit, right, Richard? He probably knows how old I am. That's another matter. But as a matter of fact, it's passion you and I have got to bring, the Holy Father says, because it's passion that attracts. And then the third thing he said we must be doing, this is Pope Francis, is precisely that we have got to show hope for the future. Hope for the future. Now, he's not saying that in some way that would imply that you and I aren't realistic about what the world looks like in front of our eyes, nor is he unrealistic about it. As a matter of fact, he's profoundly realistic when he says that, when he says to you and me, have hope for the future. Because you stand at a threshold where you can have hope, and the hope has to be grounded in something real. Okay? Now, I want to begin with, I really didn't make enough of these handouts, so let me ask you to look on together. Sister, could you distribute these like you... Anyway, I'm being nasty. I want to look at the back page of this with you. One of the things I discover in moving across the country and talking to people about religious life is that many Catholics, ordinary Catholics, no longer have an experience of us. We're not here in the numbers we once were, right? There were times when, there were places when Franciscans ran huge schools, right? And there were, of course, if you came through Steubenville, you think the world, everybody knows Steubenville, right? And all that goes on there. But there are lots of places where there are no longer big institutions associated with religious life. Okay? Thank you. But what I want to do is look at the back page here, because in a way, I've sat with some laity and other people and said, Well, do you understand what the difference is between the dominant model, which is a diocesan model of life, right? It's the model we're raised in, right? And it's a wonderful model. So I want to look at me with the one with the little miter there at the bottom. I realize the print is small, but you're young and you can still see. Not all of us are young. And I just want to be clear. How does the model operate? It's set up for pastoring. See, because in the Catholic wisdom, in the Catholic world, everybody deserves to be pastored. It's not a bad word. It's a good word. It means that somebody has care for you, and somebody's going to devote themselves to you. So, you can't get married without having a proper pastor, And what that means is he's going to reach out to you and do for you many good things. It is territorial. It's based upon a given geographical area, and that's all it covers, and it's a pretty small area. It's also, it centers around pastoring and maintaining the ecclesial community. What's its job? Its job is to take care of us. That's what it should be. St. Anthony's down here on 12th Street is supposed to be taking care of the people in the neighborhood. You got to be local. You got to be implanted there, and you got to care for those folks. In addition, it's centered in the office and the person of the bishop. He's the chief pastor, after all. That's what he's got to do for us. So everything he does relative to us has to be within that context. You understand? The authority resides within the person of that bishop. He's the guy that is he's the place where the buck stops, So if you've been assigned responsibility for the youth and you're not pulling through, he's the one that's going to tell you, hey, guy, get out of here. Do the job or go, okay? You understand? It's a good system, folks. Leadership is appointed. Leadership is appointed. You don't rise up and say, I'm going to be the leader, right? Leadership's appointed. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. There's unity and uniformity with the bishops in the larger context and with the universal church. It's a very important issue that we show we're one and the same, that we've got the same faith. Our altar is a symbol of that same faith. The parish altar is a sign of that, right? Isn't it marvelous? You should be getting excited about the fact that you got a parish church to go to when you hear this kind of stuff. The bishop and this diocese governs, the bishop, I should say, governs and oversees all the ministry within his boundaries. All the ministry. Anything that's a public ministry, he's ultimately responsible for. He's got to know that you're teaching the faith, He's got to know that when you say you're running that program, you're really doing what you said you were going to do, right? That's his job. You can't come in and preach. I love the stories about St. Francis, St. Francis would never preach against the will of the bishop, right? He would, some people said, why did Francis get ordained to deacon? I said, well, I don't know, maybe he wanted a little pull there to be able to say, I'm ordained too. A diocesan structure maintains institutions for the sake of the service of the faithful. So what's it got? It'll have something like a diocesan newspaper. It'll have an office for the laity, right? It'll have an office for catechesis. And the priests commit themselves in a vow of obedience, in a promise of obedience to the bishop and his successors, right? Now, that's not our reality, people. Pardon me. Once you join religious life, we do live in dioceses. But look at the other one where we have a sister and a monk or whatnot there. Look at the religious life structure and see if you can catch how things function slightly differently for us. We are in response to direct inspiration, need, or request. What do I mean by inspiration, need, or request? If you dig into the roots of your particular community, you're going to find that some inspiration came upon a particular woman or man, and that was envisioned and brought to life in some way. Or there was a particular need that was very clearly identified, and a group of people committed themselves to that need under the inspiration of some charismatic-like leader. Or there was a request. Somebody came and said, you look like went to Cuba. We are not territorial, but super territorial. Generally, we're super territorial. Now, I will admit that there are some communities that are founded to just be within one little location, and Benedictine monasteries are the symbol of stability. So stability means they make a commitment in a certain place, but even they will go beyond the boundaries typically associated so that they can fulfill a mission or a task. Huh? They are also, I want to say, in this religious life, we serve both the ecclesial community and the larger society. We don't just look at what the needs are within the local church in this diocese. That's not the only question we're asking. We're not just what's going on in the city of D.C. or in the counties. We're not asking that question alone, because most of you are from religious communities that constitute a much larger view of the world, if you would. In addition to that, we're centered in the charism. Centered in the charism. What was the inspiration that the Holy Spirit brought to our founder or foundress that grabbed a generation of people? What was it? We are centered in that charism. We describe ourselves as being there. That's how we understand our being, if you would. And why am I a Capuchin Franciscan? Because I was grabbed, if you would, by the Holy Spirit as the Holy Spirit envisioned that within the Capuchin community, and as I saw it played out in real people. Huh? You understand? Okay. I hope this isn't going on too long for you. Authority for governing internally resides within the Institute itself. We're responsible for ourselves. We are. And we're so responsible for ourselves that we do things like gather. Even the abbot of a monastery gathers around him his monks who are his advisors or counselors. But in many other communities, there are the kinds of legislative chapters where a community makes huge decisions about where it ought to be, how what they believe they ought to do fits within the primary inspiration of the Holy Spirit, and how they're going to live it out. We take that profoundly seriously, so much that you'll find both in canon law and in our own reflections, we say that's the highest authority that operates for us. Huh? In addition to this, you can find that our leadership our authority exists for governing internally, and leadership may be elected or appointed. It's absolutely phenomenal to me. Do you know that in the Conference of Major Superiors of Men, leadership turns over, on average, of the approximately 250 men's institutes who participate regularly within religious life in the United States in our conference, approximately 1/3 turns over. Do you realize what that means? That means that some of you sitting here are going to be elected to be religious leaders. You're suddenly going to find yourself chosen to serve not only the brothers or the sisters within the community, but you're also going to find yourself chosen to be a representative for religious life before your peers in the lay life and people in our society. You're going to find that happening. There is, if you would, unity with the universal church and the collaboration with bishops. Absolutely essential. You can't get along without it. We are self-governing within the Institute for the sake of the mission. What's abundantly clear from all of the founding documents in multiple religious communities is there's a clear understanding we're not in this only for ourselves, that there is some extra, if you would, to which we've been invited to participate. Think of the SVD community and its call to be universally speaking the Word of God throughout the world. Think of that as a way that a society is called to do something marvelous. We maintain institutions only insofar, I wish this were totally true, this is not totally, but we maintain institutions only insofar as they express the charism, respond to the needs, or fulfill the requests. That's a big challenge. That's a huge challenge, I may say so. Members commit themselves in vows and promises and obedience to God, to the Institute, and to the missions as they've been entrusted to them. Now, do you see the difference? Vive la différence. It's not as if we are Johnny-come-latelys. We've been around since Anthony in the desert. We've been around since people like Origen were preaching in Egypt when Egypt was turning from being a secularist, a pagan country to learning the Christian message. We have been all across the globe. It's not as if we need to defend our reason to be before others in society, nor that we need to be in some way uncertain of how we fit into the church. We fit in a very real way, Pope Francis says, you are a gift to the church because you have a call to this religious life. You're a gift to the larger church. Now, don't let your head get big over that, okay? We don't think that way. But he's saying profoundly that the presence of a Benedictine monastery within a location is a gift to that local church. The presence of Franciscans who perhaps go to the Holy Land and minister at the holy sites since the time of St. Francis is a gift to the larger church. The presence of the Sisters of the Atonement at the retreat house here is a gift to the Church of Washington. But if you learn more about the atonement charism and what it involves, you'll find that it's had a profound impact as an American foundation within the United States. You'll be surprised at the things the atonement friars and sisters have done together. You will find that the sisters who taught or still teach in schools have an incredible impact on the formation of young minds within our country. You can tell that you can go on with these, and the Holy Father says, never forget you are a gift to the church. You are not somebody we have to excuse or push aside. Now, when I say that because at times ordinary Catholics today don't know about us. Do you know what's happening on February 8th? February 8th? The open house for Consecrated Life. I just sent out a memo this week to all major superiors and men saying, incidentally, have you gotten ready for this? It was the sisters who came up with this idea. They wanted to call it Come Visit the Convent. And I said, well, I know that we can call men's houses convents, but you know what that means. It means we're going to go see the sisters. But what's happening is a nationwide observance that was negotiated with the USCCB so that all across the country in the United States and it's deliberately on February 8th because February 2nd is Super Bowl Sunday and we're not stupid. Okay, so you understand? So it's on February 8th, and the point is, I don't care how long it is. If you want to have coffee with people at the church, do that. If, on the other hand, you want to stand at the back door of the church and greet people and say, hi, I'm Sister, what would you say your name? Sister Clara? I'm Sister Clara, and I'm with this community. That's fine, too. Maybe that's all you can achieve in terms of open house, but here in Washington, my gosh, we could have a grand tour of religious houses, In Brookland alone, we could have a bus running from one house to the other, and so I'm encouraging. It can be as brief as an hour, but you have to plan something, people. Please plan something, because what we want people to be sure of is that they see that religious life is alive and that religious life is thriving in its own way, and that it's a real force within the church. Okay? What I'd like to do at this point is ask you, if you could, to form some little groups here and have a little conversation, because this is supposed to be conversation, and I've already talked too long. And so the conversation I'd like to invite you to have right now is a conversation that says, what can I see in my charism that brings great hope for the future of Christian faith? What can I see in my charism that brings great hope for the future of Christian faith? What I would suggest is that we form groups of about 5, okay? Will that work? You know, you can turn around chairs, you can, do whatever, please. So may I ask you to do that? And don't be afraid to move around the room a little, too. Hello, everyone. Hi. I hope that your conversation was rich also, as indeed many of them are that I was able to listen in on. I wonder if there are any perceptions or thoughts people would like to share in the last few minutes that we have. I just want to point out that in the inside of this material that I gave you are observations that I've learned over 3.5 years working with religious all over the country and going to other countries as well. I find an incredible number of things here that give me hope, and also things that tell me how I have to be courageous about the future and positive about it. But I suspect that in your conversations you already touched on many of the things that you will find reported here. I don't claim to be the only word on this, and you may take issue with any one of them if you like. But what I'd like to do is invite, if there's anybody who feels that he or she would want to say a word to the rest of us here, I'll pass the mic to you, and then we'll be able to hear some observations. Anyone here at this group? Richard? My wonderful employee? And brother religious?
There was a lot of hope expressed here. Everyone had something very positive to say, and we all have different charisms that we come from. I thought that was fascinating to hear the kind of different works that are happening. Engagement of lay associates was an element that I found to be helpful, and I don't think we pay as much attention to that as we should. It might need a little more direction than it has received in the past, but we had a very good discussion.
Thank you. Anyone here?
Did you give me? Okay. Well, we started with talking about different ministries and helping people with conversion and with the different ways we do that. But then at the end, we were kind of all talking about the importance of religious community in a time when people feel very isolated and very lonely. The great poverty of loneliness that we face, Mother Teresa always would talk about that, about the poverty of loneliness of the Western world. And we see this in the people we minister to, but also internal to the community. And so we were talking about the rich gift we experience of being in community that, to use a little phrase, we can't stay on an island. Like somebody either comes to your island or draws you off of it. And so that we become experts in communion. And we even address the challenge of wholesome friendship within religious life. That at one time there was this kind of fear that if there was too much particularity, somehow that harmed the spirit. But to be friends, you have to particularly be interested in another. So healthy friendships, community living, how that witnesses to the people around us, and how we can reach out to those we minister to. Sometimes it's not even a physical need we're meeting, but a spiritual need of accompaniment for others in whatever form our ministry takes.
Excellent, thank you. Another group here.
Since we're many religious here from different communities, the one comparison I remember. Do I have to press something here? No. Anyhow, never mind. That the church itself is like a beautiful garden with many, many flowers with different purposes. Some flowers could be even medicinal, some just for its beauty of appearance or the perfume of the flower. Some may be very little, some may be very great. So I think the church itself is a big garden with many religious, including, of course, the diocesan and the secular clergy. And I think that particular reference is good to think about, that we're a part of a beautiful garden in the church.
Thank you. Anyone here? The Atonement Sisters, would you pass that to them?
Well, it was interesting, the different charisms of compassion Father was speaking of, and we're very involved in Christian unity, that we are at one with God, self, and neighbor, and how important that is, the respect for all people who come of different faiths. And I have to say, we were really impressed that there are two postulates. It gives us hope to see what your needs are and what you bring, the gifts that you bring to the church. It really was wonderful to hear what they had to say as well. Anybody else?
Thank you. Back here. And we had a group meeting here. Would somebody like to speak from this august group? Vince?
So one of the major topics that we discussed was kind of universal to religious life in general, and Pope Francis has really emphasized, is that for religious life to be something desirable, it has to be joyful and life-giving and living the gospel. And so that was something we really paid some attention to in our discussion.
And this group here? Oh, Lou, you want to say something?
Sure. So we talked about the different charisms with the group here, and we each had different varieties. But we were talking about it's more just important than just to be a nice person out in the world. How can we attract people to be nice people within religious communities, not focused on just being nice, but focused on the person of Christ? That was one thing we talked about.
Thank you. Thank you. Would you like to add a comment?
We just spoke a little bit at the end toward really emphasizing the contemplative dimension, that it seems to be just such a really needed aspect. And one of the things I was saying is there are tremendous movements on mindfulness and the contemplative, but it's in the secular. Many public schools are doing it, many universities, Google's doing it, and it sort of brings you to that calm center, but people don't even know what that center is. And I said, I'm really disappointed that there are so few parishes that offer this, and I think it's probably up to us to maybe become more involved in it.
Great. Thank you for that observation. I'm going to try to wrap things up here real quickly because I realize we said this would last an hour, and you've been a wonderful group to participate with each other. I realize that some of you go to classes, and some of us have jobs too, you know, and work and do other things too to try to earn our living. Yeah, that too. But I just want to say that there are a few things I'd like to observe to you. I want to observe to you that there really are many, many signs of life within religious life and societies of apostolic life all across the country. The Minister General of the Capuchins for many years used to say, you've been praying for vocations for years, God's answered your prayer. They're in Africa, you know. But that's not only the truth. The truth is God's answering that prayer elsewhere. There are vocations. In some places it's a trickle. In some places it's growing into a full stream. And in other places it's absolutely amazing how many young people, like some of the young people here, are coming forward and saying, you know, I do believe there's something here that's drawing me. I had a dear friend who for many years, many years was a holy man also, but he had a doctorate in microbiology and had done some groundbreaking work in microbiology. And he used to say to me, you know, he would call me Padre. He'd say, Padre, you are in the God business. Never forget that. Now, what did Herman mean by saying to us that we are in the God business? We are, for many people, a touch point for transcendence. We're people who say, clearly, we believe. We believe, and we're willing to stand up and say we believe. You should never forget or be embarrassed by the fact that you are a believer. Not only do you need to do that, but as Herman would say, you also got to come to us who are so busy in many other ways that we can't touch or feel we're out of touch at times with God. That's why I love your comment about contemplation as one of the ways in which we help to introduce people to that reality, because it depends upon God's grace, if you would, for each of us. I also want to say to you that there are many new movements that are appearing all over the country. Let me tell you about a couple I saw in Canada last year. Young people getting together and joining. There's a new community up there, and it translates to being the youth, something like jeunesse, And what they do is they reach out to kids who are out on the streets. Now, I just find that phenomenal. They have gone to where the need is, so they haven't created a community that thinks of itself first, but it does. It thinks about structure, it thinks about prayer, thinks about all the things that are essential to form a strong bond of communion, but they're on the streets with people, young people, kids, the kids who are on drugs, the kids who get in trouble with the law. They're doing this. This has been done repeatedly in the history of the church. It's being done anew up there. There's another group in Montreal that took over a church in the center city and formed a new Benedictine community. It's the Jerusalem community. Now, I want you to know that the characteristic of this community is that there are men and women in it. The women are on one side, the guys are on the other. Okay, and they don't live in the same house, don't get me wrong. Okay, but one of the things they do is pray together. And they pray together in a phenomenally beautiful way of worship. Their primary thing is to sing polyphonic music, sort of in a more Eastern Rite tradition. So here was this church in the city of Montreal that was dying. Nobody was coming to it. They moved in, took it over. The day I visited there, it started with about 300 people in the church who were attending Vespers. By the time we were ready for Mass to begin, the church was packed with at least another 300 people. And it was simply a presence, because their way of living the Benedictine life is to pray and work, but they go out and work in the local community instead of just working in the monastery. So they have jobs, but they go out. I want to tell you, that's just in Montreal, but there are other movements I can tell you about, groups all over the country. And I think that what you're beginning to see is some awakening of what good things can come as religious are present and assisting. The other thing I want to say is don't lose sight of the fact that as religious, we stand with the poor. We stand with those who are on the periphery, because that's where Jesus is. So don't lose sight of that reality, because it's incredibly important. We don't have to hold on to other things, the Pope says. Pope Francis says, when you hold on primarily to God, you are free then to reach out to all these others. So when you look at the tremendous outpouring of respect for religious who do this kind of service, reaching out to the poor, why do the poor feel welcome among us? Because you know how to do that. It's pretty human. It's what the gospel is about, isn't it? The gospel is about what happens when you're most fundamentally human in the way God created you to be. So never lose sight of that. And think about how there's been a tremendous outpouring of support for sisters in this country who, as a matter of fact, put themselves on the front line with poor in many places. It's real. It's real. I've heard these people. They've talked to me. They've said, well, Sister does this wonderful thing. They're out here with the immigrants. They've been working against trafficking. They've been on the front lines. I want you to know that all of those things are great signs of hope, I believe, for us. When we sit here as a group of men and women, religious, some of us young, some of us no longer young. I'm not 25 anymore, I won't lie. But nevertheless, we can't let ourselves buy into a narrative. What was that Benedictine's name, Bernard, that came over from Austria? He said, you buy into a narrative of diminishment, and it's impossible because of its vortex to spin free of it. So if all you're convinced of is a diminishment reality, you're losing sight of the fact that God is still working in other ways, and diminishment may mean that the institutions we've had in the past are smaller or different. Who cares? What difference does it make? But what is true is that the God part, the part that moves us out of ourselves and into the gospel, is alive and active and real. With that, I'm going to stop. Thank you very much for coming tonight. It's been a pleasure to be with you.